one of the designs the owner showed us is, okay, you're going to do your thing here. It's like, we already have a plan for a community. He's like, we want you to do it all. He's like, we want you guys to buy it off and do it all. But, you know, and so he's like, because he's right next to, he's a nice view, but right next to a strip mall. The same property as a strip mall. So maybe we're not talking high-end townhomes. I look that way, I'm thinking high-end townhomes. I look that way, I'm thinking trailer park. Right, because that's the strip mall. Like, you know. Yeah, I mean, and so, yeah, so I pretty much said the same thing to her. I said, you know, listen, you've done one or three of something that I don't know anybody that's done.
Right.
All right. So yeah. So basically, yeah. I mean, definitely. And so next month is either her or land flipping guy, and the month after is a guy who specializes on tax management strategies for real estate investors.
Okay.
April or May was the first. Like, we think May is the first date he's going to work out for.
Okay.
So I'm just going to go through this real quick. For those of you out there, I think we have 5 or 6 people online. Let me just get this up to 100%. Thank you. 100%. Oh.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
All right, cool. Get my ugliness off the screen. So last month, some of you came to our meetup where we're talking in general about self-storage. And for those of you who are on now, we got about a dozen people, looks like, out there. Self-storage is a unique type of business model that every year since I was probably 20, like way before I was thinking real estate, I was like, oh, that's gonna blow up. I was very much, oh, that's a boring business and you're not gonna make any money. Well, the reality is boring business is where you do make money. Mobile home parks, self-storage, car washes, laundromats, they can be freaking cash cows. I know someone who's going under on a laundromat, and his new real estate broker, because he and I are falling out, so I collateral with somebody. She's like, how is it not working? I said, she's like, where? I said, don't ask me. I've given him advice for the last 5 years. He doesn't want to take it. Those boring businesses make money. So the trick with self-storage, and the important thing when you're doing self-storage, is care, custody, control is the entire game. That will bring. We looked years ago. I was involved in a self-storage partnership that never got off the ground because the other GP and I could never agree on what we were going after, and it was just it did not work out. As you know, two smart guys just didn't fit together, and we were going to take over the old L.A. Lewis moving and storage company when they were going under whatever, and they had a storage model that was basically the 1890s version of pods. They had these enormous plywood pods, and they would take a truck to your house, pick up your stuff, the whole white glove service thing, bring it back, put it in these boxes, have their super tall forklift, like a 50-foot freaking forklift. And if you wanted to get your China set out, you pay them $50. They bring it down, they give you a China set. Go. Yeah. And their insurance for about 18,000 square feet for the storage portion was like $30,000 a year. Now, admittedly, they had some labor costs in there and some other stuff. It wasn't pure. But a similar size self-storage facility would have an insurance of like $6,000 a year because you have no care, custody, control. Mm-hmm. The self-storage facility can sell you that lock. They don't have the key. They have a key. Those round, funny locks have 2 holes on the back. Yep. Your key that opens it. My key, the storage facility, what they call overlocks. Mm-hmm. You don't pay your rent. I turn my key. You ain't getting in without my permission. It's a double lock, but I can't get into your stuff. So I have no custody of your stuff. I have no control, and I don't care for it. I don't place it. I don't do anything. I say, here's a box. And that's what defines self-storage. Pods work basic, and I've not looked deeply into the pods business because and I'm not against it, but as a partnership, we decided we didn't want to get into owning the special truck and the labor and whatever. And there's a little, it's in the middle because you're picking the pot up and transporting it.
Yep.
So if you have an accident during the transport, so it's like it's not pure, but it's closer to that. So I'm mostly interested in self-storage. I've got boxes. Come use my boxes, basically. And what you're looking at in self-storage is there's lots of self-storages. I don't know anything about medical. I don't know anything about museum quality storage. That is such a high bar of humidity and temperature and combinations and all this other stuff that no one that I know, even that I have companies that I'm related to, does that. There are companies that do it, they do very well, but they are the museum storage people, the pharmaceutical storage people. For me, it's non-climate control. So there's three categories, really. So it's non-climate control and climate control. Non-climate control can be the stupid metal drive-ups, or I have a warehouse with no heat. I'm not promising you crap. It's a building, but I'm not promising you temperature or humidity or not. Climate control, there's a very wide bar. It's basically above freezing, below boiling, and some humidity management. So your furniture is not heated, but we're not keeping it 55 degrees year round. And those are the two most common and most profitable. And what you're looking for in self-storage, whatever the category is the average American. And oddly enough, this is one of those averages that we are quite average here. I don't know if there are other markets that may be outside of average. The average American needs 7 square feet of self-storage. Like you need 7, you need 7, you need 7, you need 7. So when you do a self-storage analysis, there is a study that studies local demographics and psychographics. In theory, we need slightly more here because our old houses have no closets, no basements, no attics. So, but according to the studies, we actually don't. According to the studies, we end up pretty much needing about 7.3 or something like that. And so when you look and do a demand analysis, that's the first thing you do. So this property that is literally like 100 yards from my house came up. I mean, perfect in every way. A concrete block building, has heat, has blowers, doesn't have air conditioning. Was built to military specs. It was a military machine shop type subcontractor. And so we're like, all right, and had lots of outdoor space. So we're like, hey, you know what? It cost me like, I have a service that so I'm like, all right, let me run a report. So I ran the report, and it comes up that, and these are 1 mile, 3 mile population, year population growth. So this is our 5-minute report. We hire actual people to do the longer reports, but we do a 5-minute report. And here's where it became, and this is the line, 1 mile is 8.7 existing supply. And we knew from a different report nearby that we were still around the 7, 6.5, so the 7.73. All right, and 3 mile, 5 miles. So 1 mile is like you're in New York City. Mm-hmm. And the reason it says 10-minute drive is because that's the statistical average of what people want to drive to for self-storage. They're not looking to go free forever. They want to keep their crap near them. So 6.2 is the 3 mile for this particular property. And that's where it's a suburban location. It's Swearsville, back road of Swearsville. It's actually listed by Greg Baruch as a great building for the right client. Well, 6.2, if the market is 6.8, doesn't really warm my heart to spend $1.5 million on a property and then build it out when I have a similar property, 30 miles away that has a existing supply of 4 and a demand of 7.3. So this one killed the deal very quickly. So if you have a self-storage facility and you wanted to run a quick analysis, give me a call. I don't do the in-depth one. If this had worked for the one that did work, we're hiring Bob Copper, spending a couple $1,000s to re-up to do a full deep study. He's a professional that does specifically self-storage studies. So this is the first thing you look at when you're deciding what a self-storage facility is. Now, we're looking at another one down toward Allentown-ish, but it's a very rural suburb of Allentown. And that's a 10-mile radius because it's very rural.
Yeah.
It's got all the other, now you also want to look at, and that's why this first portion is important. This population growth. Are we are we at least even, or are we going in a positive direction? Okay, so we're basically treading water, kind of thing. We're growing a very tiny bit. The one down in Allentown is growing like crazy because it's right off the 78 corridor. So we're not, whatever. Households, renter occupied. Renter occupied is also quite popular. One of the unique things that I've seen in the last 10 years of studying self-storage closely, but the last 40 years kind of sort of watching it, is there isn't a bad time for self-storage. Because in bad times, people shutting down their businesses need to store their crap. Losing their houses, moving in mom need to store their crap. In good times, they got too much damn money, they buy too much damn crap, and need to put it somewhere. And all those of us in real estate, I did this. We finished up actually the flip I was telling you about with the funny staircase, and we had all the heck fill up from crap. We stored in our garage for a little while, and my wife's like, yeah, fuck that. So we went to a storage. 6 months, we'll get rid of it all. 5 years later, nothing in there is. Yeah. And so we were spending at the time $100. It was a 10 by 20. We were spending about $120 a month, which actually wasn't a bad price. Okay, so that's $1,400 a year. 6 years. Nothing in the box was worth. Yeah. All of it combined was worth less than $1,000. So like, I should have just given it away. Whatever. And by the way, everyone that I know in self-storage says that storage wars is a lie. No one leaves any good shit.
Right.
When they're going to stop paying their rent, they go and take all the good stuff and leave you with the crap stuff. It's like every tenant in the world. So you look, but self-storage is and I literally am driving up here, and one of my friends from Philly, she's a broker and also a very big wholesaler, and she's like, I got 3 guys who can buy $40 million, and they want to invest in self-storage up here. She's like, what can you find?
That's a lot of money.
Yeah. I mean, most of her clients are like, she doesn't do anything small. Most of her clients are Israeli, a lot of foreign money, a lot of whatever. So she's doing, all these, but there's always money for this. And the reason there's always money in self-storage, what differentiates it from, let's say residential, is roughly, you look and say, okay, residential is a 50% cost load. If your rent's $1,000, you're probably paying before your mortgage $500 a month, taxes, insurance, maintenance, whatever. You're losing half the money, plus or minus whatever your math is. But yeah, self-storage is about a 33% cost load in non-climate controlled driving, because you've got no heat, and beautifully, you've got no tenants calling on. Even if your heat goes out, and you've got a climate control commitment, okay. You got a climate control commitment and you can't get it fixed, and somebody comes after you and says you made a commitment, and there might be some money there. But what you don't have is people saying, well, my kids are dying, it's Christmas Eve and there's no heat in my furnace and my stove and my this and my life. And no. I mean, are you liable in certain, in non-climate controlled drive up, it's almost a triple net situation. Oh, it's not triple net. It's a situation where keep it dry, keep it relatively rodent free, and here's a box. That can be a storage container box, that can be a pod, that can be, you're giving people, here's a box. So that's where you have lower cost load, and that's why the real estate investment trusts, U-Haul. Now, I took a very expensive, frankly overpriced course. One of the things my partner and I didn't agree on, but we went with it anyway, on self-storage from a guy who, at the time we signed up in 2018, U-Haul was 5th of owner of square footage, and he was 45th in the country owner of square footage. So, like, definitely a guy that knows his shit. Mm-hmm. And what he loved about it was that it was such a passive business that people didn't bother you about it. There was a guy at one of the seminars that he ran that bought what my partner considered to be too small, 20 units, 30 units. And he'd have a live manager, except he wouldn't have a live manager. He'd have a TV screen.
Right.
and there'd be a human somewhere.
Right. Watching the
And
screen.
you walk in the thing, and all of a sudden the screen lights up, and there's this, cute Asian lady or whatever, and she's live. It's not AI. This is before AI. She's live with you, but she's not there.
Right.
So she's not getting paid to sit around and read a book. And so there's ways of making automation. There's kiosks that spit out the locks, and yada yada. So you can do a lot of stuff. So self-storage has a lower cost load, has much lower tenant demands. There are tenant demands, but no one's living there. If you do a self-storage facility, put in your contract it's a 23/7 facility. 2 to 3 a.m. no one's allowed on property. Now, whether you shut down your lock, your gates or whatever is a different story. But apparently this guy had someone living in one of his first facilities, had someone living there. Wow. Actually turned a 10 by 10 into an apartment. He unscrewed the light bulb, screwed in one of those little thingies and made some wires, whatever. And
that's incredible. Yeah.
My coach in this, my mentors, went up to him and said, no. And he's like, well, there's no rule in your contract about that. My mentor was like,
will be.
There will be, yeah. He's like, well, I have you on it not being a habitable unit, but that's not my contract. That's city. So he put a stop to it. But he's like, okay, now all my facilities close down from 2 a.m. to 3 a.m. Done. We're just whatever the time was. And he's like, do I care if someone goes there at that time? No, I'm not going to shut them out. But technically not allowed. The other reason self-storage works is because you have such a easy management style, and because there's so little activity really, and you can make money off U-Haul, you can make money on box sales and other stuff. But that's why the real estate investment trusts, and that's why my partner didn't want to buy little. He wanted things that U-Haul would buy for us. Because I want to buy at 10 cap or 12 cap. U-Haul buys at 5 or 6. So U-Haul, bluntly, they're going to overpay compared to what we all think is the right. So if you own a self-storage facility, one of my friends is making a lot of money. He's only in his 30s now. Buying or building and stabilizing, get them to break even, a little bit above break even, and sell them. He's like, I'm going to have these things built for, forgetting the land, I'll have these things built for $40 a square foot. He's like, I'll sell them to the REITs for $400 a square foot. He's like, so it doesn't really matter what I'm spending in the middle, I'm doing okay.
Right.
Because these real estate investment trusts, they're insurance companies, they're hedge funds, they're retirement funds. They don't need a high percentage return. And this is a very stable industry. They are still investing like stupid in this industry. So if you find a property, a warehouse, a business, a building, in fact, the one Ryan just showed in Dallas, that probably wouldn't be a horrible use for that building.
Sure.
Because it's got a lot of road access, whatever. And that's what you're looking for on, and that's what you're looking for. Is you're looking for, can an amateur with a U-Haul pull this off? Can an amateur on a 25-foot U-Haul make the corners? Can they do this safely? Can they find you? Now, the other beautiful thing about self-storage is it doesn't need to be beautiful land. It can be scarred mineland. It can be almost brown. We were going to turn and this one got away because the school changed its mind. We were going to buy the old Montage meat facility from whichever college owned it, because of the K, downtown Street, but whatever. And that building, when we did the phase 1, it turns out one of the rooms was used for dipping chromium fire doors, which chromium is dangerous here. And we showed it to the bank, like, okay, I guess the game is over. The bank's like, no, it's not. We're like, what? He's like, first of all, it was dipping chromium fire doors in 1950, and this is 2018. So, like, if there was going to be a cancer cluster, it would have already happened. And he's like, second of all, this building's perfect for you because no one's sleeping there. No kids are playing in the playground. It's not a school. No people are actually spending a lot of time there. You drive in, dump your crap, you leave. So self-storage has a fairly low bar as far as like the health of the land. It can't be, PCBs or whatever, but it can be something like that. So the next thing you look at when you're doing your self-storage analysis is what's it? Okay, so this is 6.2 is the current. That's this sort of middle area here.
That's what
That's currently what's
Square
there
feet
for
per
supply.
person?
That's
Currently?
where supply per person. And we knew this study doesn't do demand. It just goes off the national standard. National standard is about 7. But we actually had another study that told us it was 7.2. Like, all right, and we did the math, and like, okay, so an extra 1.2 square feet times the number of people means we can bring online 150,000 square feet in this one that we're doing. In this one, 6.2 to 6.8, we're like, that means we can bring online 50,000 square feet. Oh, our building is 70,000 square feet. Just like the math doesn't work to leave a margin. Because you never want to be that 6.2 to 6.8, 6.2 to 7. When we finish our project up here, we're going to have brought the market from 4.2 to 5, and it's 7.2. Maybe 4.2 to 6. So we've still got a lot of room, whereas that's why I'm showing this one. I'm showing the one that didn't work. But then we also look at, now if this number had been lower, if this had been like in the 4s, this next piece of information is great. Active development pipeline. Nothing. Supply adjusted for active pipeline. Well, there's no active pipeline, so active pipeline means permits pulled or known things going on. Now, could somebody be out there eyeing something? Okay, sure, could be. But if this number had worked, I'd be buying this building. This first number didn't work because the rest of these numbers were fine. And then what we also compare is we rent in 262, whatever, 365. When we ran the demand, it was like 300,000. So like we took the 7.2 multiplied by the people. We're like, it just didn't make sense to take on a $1.5 million loan and then do build out, and then oops, find out it wasn't going to work. Makes me very sad. I walk my dog past that house at least once a week. I would love to be able to walk to work. Sure. But it's not going to happen. Recent deliveries, recent build outs, and these are hypothetical. Like if demand is 3 square feet a person, this is how many square feet the market needs. So if demand is 7 square feet a person, 3 mile you need 296. Well, up here it says you already have 262. So just not enough room. If those two numbers are far enough apart, then you can run the numbers. Let's scan through this one, see what else. And this is also, report also tells you those dots are other facilities. Okay. So I'm like, okay, you know what? I got a lot of target dots. And on the one we're doing up here, my partner and I kind of got scared because the report we had that the seller gave us from 2 years ago had only like 4 dots on it. And we just did the Google, show me how many facilities. They were like 12 dots. And we're like, huh. But when we pulled the data, there was still plenty of room. And so I called the guy to the report. He's like, we only put the 4 or 5 dots of the most comparable facilities. He's like, we didn't show you all the dots. He's like, so those dots were probably already there. We put them aside for whatever reason we did. But this report just shows you these are all the other facilities. And it breaks down some information on each one. And again, this is an automated report, so it's not going to break down any. When you pay the professionals, they actually call the facilities. And there's 3 prices. They have the quick desktop, the actual desktop. No, they have the desktop, the fly out here, when they actually fly out, drive around and learn the market. And then they have the fly out here, and then they have a bank package for each one, which does your market surveys, it does your marketing and all your other crap. It gives you everything you need to give a bank. You're basically, here's your business plan. Done. But this tells you what's going on in the facilities. And this also tells you, somewhere in here, it tells you what they, on their website, have available. Okay. So it gives you enough to know this is a $500-600 way to find out whether you want to spend the $5,000 to $6,000, $10,000 to do the build. Right. And the last, and this kind of gives you other properties and other trends. So pricing trends. What are people charging? Now, here's where it gets interesting. It's 10 by 10, which is whenever I look at a facility, just because math is easy, 10 by 10 is 100 square feet. I'm like, oh, well, what's 10 by 10? Okay, so I'm building, we have 300,000 square feet. Well, divide by 100, that's 300 units. But basically, we can put up 750 units according at the Scranton location. So we're planning on putting up 300. So if the survey said we were good at 700, we know we're good at 300.
Sure.
And we do it by 10 by 10. So now what's interesting is here's climate control of 129. And here's non-climate control of 115. And you scroll down a little bit to something more modern. 10 by 10 is this one. So 135 to 115. So I make $20 or more a month square footage in climate control unit per unit. Well,
So it's the cost difference.
I don't. It's the cost difference. 20 is it costs about. It's the cost difference to build, cost is different to operate. At 20, it's still worth building some climate control, but in the location we were looking at down toward Allentown, it was $35 cost difference for the rent. Meaning that's what I would rent it for. I rented for 100. I'd rent it for 140.
Right.
At that point, of course, I'm doing climate control. I'm doing at least some. I'll offer both. And so you also look at that. And when you go from this study to the professional study, they actually give you a unit mix. You should put up 25 by 5s and 55 by 10s and this many climate controls and this many, whatever other kinds of variations. And there's even another one, which I don't think that exists in anybody's study, called a contractor, which is like a 30 by 50, 12 by 12 roll-up door, maybe bigger. And you're literally looking for the guy that has a box truck and wants a nice warm place to put it and run a shop from.
Yep.
I think that's more if you build a building, throw a couple of those on there, because I don't know if there's a survey for them, but every agent that I know says that they do one.
Yep.
But so you
maybe like like you said, almost if you have that much room,
yeah,
maybe another building where you rent out that kind of shop.
Yeah.
They don't really work there, but they need a place to put their truck and their tools and their materials.
And in fact, when I walked the other building, Greg said to me, he's like, I just sold 3 or 4 pieces of land to contractors who didn't want to do it. He's like, but they couldn't find a contractor unit. So finally, they were like, screw it, we're just going to buy some land, put up a pole barn, and this is our thing, and whatever. So there is demand for that, but my friend out in Boston was telling me for years, he's like, contracting, the problem is I can't show the math. So this one in Scranton, we'll probably throw up a couple contractor units. Just put 2 or 3 up, be like, hey, here. We're not counting on them. If they don't sell, we'll use them for something else. The other thing on self-storage is your timeline. Okay, you can buy a broken facility and renovate it. That's one great thing. You find the dad who's been running it, the kids are off in LA and they don't care and they don't want this. If you find a situation like that in any industry, call me. If you find something that's a dead motel, the Asian and Indian, or Indians and Asian, whatever, those kids are off being doctors now.
Right.
They don't want to be motel owners. Well, dad and mom are getting older. We'll take the motel. We'll turn it into 1 bedroom, whatever, something. But the same thing with self-storage. You find that self-storage owner who has the rusty ass self-storage and is just kind of done with it. Great. But if not, you are looking at a business where when you build it from scratch, you get 20, 25 years of no maintenance. And you're also looking at smaller deck a little bit. Latest pricing, so that layout, and I kind of lost my train of thought on that last one, but that model of self-storage is that you're either looking like everything else, you're looking for the tire that will always take them. And I have myself a cash buyer. I have lots of cash buyers for self-storage and industrial and commercial space. Your zoning on self-storage varies a lot because no town, at least in Pennsylvania, is it light industrial? Is it commercial? Is it this? Is it that? That's going to depend per town and whether or not they'll let it vary. I was going to buy the Friar Glass building in Luzerne, basically, as you head out to the lake. There's just a lot of land or whatever. And it was, it's busy road, 309, whatever. But I talked to the zoning officer. He's like, no way. I said, what do you mean? I got a strip mall there. I got a car repair shop there. I got an oil shop. He's like, no self-storage. I said, okay, what about a variance? He's like, you do it all day long. We're not letting it happen. And he didn't really even in this case have a good answer. This was why. I had another one where we were doing a piece of land in Wilkes-Barre that the city was basically giving us. And the neighbors came out and forced because they were worried about security lighting. And frankly, lights at night is what they were worried about. They were worried about just glare in their windows. We got past that, and honestly, that one we were all set to close on when we realized that, well, that the buyer had never done a flood survey, and it was 9 feet over flood zone. Now, can you rent? It was one of those flood zones that we all know as locals is never flooded. But the bank would look at it and say, "You're screwed." But and we looked at it and really, he was buying it for cash, and he was kind of like not worried about it. And he's like, "You think you won't rent from me?" I said, "I don't think you can. I don't think you look at a self-storage facility and say, oh, is this a flood zone?" I said, but at the same time, if you're going to spend $500,000, maybe this isn't the spot. In fact, I'm looking at going back to the city on that spot and picking it up for cash, throwing fence around it, and calling it open storage. If you want to park your car, your boat, your RV, whatever, your boat will simply float away from floods. Great, go for it. Your car, you can drive away. But you do want to look into those kinds of things. But the point is, self-storage is a very resilient business in terms of what you can use for property, where it can be. You do have to look carefully at the warning signs would be the demand. That's what, the demand and of course demand. And I personally would never do a self-storage development without hiring Bob Copper, Storage Ninjas, Isaac Rosenthal, and one of those pros who do it every day. Because there's lots of questions you're not going to know. Like, okay, well, I'm out in a rural, well, actually, we're the one down toward Allentown. We were looking at like, well, this is a lake community. How much? And it was actually Ninjas did that report. She's like, yeah, it's a lake community. RVs. She's like, that's actually, in this case, that's actually better for you. So you definitely want that kind of help on doing them. Financing, there are more banks than you would think do them, but it is a bit of a niche. I mean, First Keystone does it. They've got some appetite for it, but there are some really focused banks. And yeah, so that's kind of a self-storage 102. And I wanted to show this one, even with the people who were on here. Actually, were at the couple of them were on the mountaintop one. This is one that didn't work, and it fell apart in 5 seconds when I ran the analysis. It was all about the demand. When the demand failed, we're out. So that's pretty much all we're doing. We do have good meetups for the next few months, guys. We're going to be launching putting it on the REI homepage website, which will be launching in a week or so. Someone just put through a question. The average from dirt, and I don't know if this includes concrete, and so excavation is always a no. It's not in this number, because do you have flat land? Do you have bouncy land? What do you have? Do you have spongy land? Have you got a rainwater and stormwater and all that other crap figured out? And that's the other difference between our Taylor, Scranton location. It's Old Fort. That location and the one down by Allentown is Allentown has nothing done. There is no environmental survey, there is no engineering, there is no permits, there is no PennDOT, which is going to really take you forever. And at the Old Fort location, it's all done. The stormwater is in the ground, the retention ponds already built, it's all done. Those things are going to, I can never give you numbers on that, because that's a piece of land. Whether you're going to fight PennDOT, whether you're going to fight zoning, all those fights we don't know. But if you have, shovel-ready, concrete-ready land, roughly, your build is going to cost you probably $25 to $40 a square foot with tariffs and telcos, but whatever. And that's going to be depending on your concrete cost, depending on what you have to do underneath the concrete. You figure the building itself is probably $25, $35 a square foot, maybe a little more climate controlled. Whatever you're going to put it on is the other question. This is 25 non, 25 climate control. And so but then you have to decide a few other things of Are you an A class, B class, or C class facility? Are you A class is beautiful wrought iron fence, you might do the chicken wire or whatever around the back, but beautiful, nice paving, really highly attractive. B class is it's got a fence, it's got probably chain link all the way around, it's got gravel, it's a little bit less impressive. C class is no fence, no lighting, whatever. And obviously when you're building B, or you're building B or A. And the last thing is motion sensor lights, solar when you can, obviously, but mixture, always have a backup. Security systems and all that stuff, cameras and whatever, because the one reality of self-storage is it's a wonderful place for people to do bad things to each other. So make sure it lights up like a Christmas tree when someone goes to the property. Make sure that it's got security cameras so if something does happen, you've captured whatever happened. At the end of the day, you're not liable for someone getting killed on your property. But if you haven't taken the proper steps, maybe you should. Maybe there's a thing there. So definitely have those kinds of things. And my friend Joe, who's in a lot of these facilities, but he showed me one he did in downtown Scranton, which, by the way, is way oversaturated, or not oversaturated. And it was a fabulous facility. He had different zoning controls. He had alarms for this, like temperature went too low, too high, something was triggered. He had motion sensor lights. There was never a light switch anywhere. There were a few, and sprinklers. Talk to your local code officer. Sprinklers can be yeses or nos depending on a lot of things. Sprinklers mean a whole different level of water coming in. So it's definitely okay. So it's a permission business. The only time it's a forgiveness business is if you're really small, or if you're a local that knows anybody, or if you're just going to take and buy a couple storage containers and stick them on your property. And you're okay if the code officer knocks on your door and says, get the hell out. And a lot of times those won't count because they're not permanent buildings, but pretty much go through the permits, get your stuff done, get it done right. Because otherwise you're, $35 a square foot on 10 by 10 units, that's $3,500 every unit. You do 300 units, that's a lot of money.
Sure, that's all you're doing.
But it's also, that's $1 million in build out, which is 10 to 50, which is like 10 grand a month. So if you do it and then you either screwed up your research or your code officer says we don't allow that, you're $1 million in the hole. All right, guys, that's it. We'll see you next month, next week in Mountaintop, and next month here. Thanks.